Man, welcome back tonight. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And of course, this is your main man back on the box tonight. It's the one and only Coach Tony, and this is the Pull Up Podcast Show. Um, the last few weeks, we've just been giving you guest after guest after guest. That's been absolutely phenomenal, and we're going to continue that tonight with another guest coming in from where? West Side, the West Coast. But before we do that, and before we bring Val to drop it, we want to take a quick moment and say absolutely thank you to our fire people, our first responders, and police department, and everyone else who has happened to take care of our Los Angeles, California area as they battle a tremendous wildfire. Millions of people have lost lives, homes, cars, valuables, and I just hope that God continue to pray. So we're going to continue to pray and send our blessings to California. But tonight's guest is also a Californian as well, but coming from the Bay Area in Oaktown. So, but before we talk about who she is and bring her out tonight, Val, you know what to do. Drop it.
It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Show. I said bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Show. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast.
Man, welcome back to the Pull Up Podcast Show and your main man, the one and only Coach Tony. Do a couple things for me tonight. One, make sure you like the show, share it with your friends, make sure they share it with people they know, and more importantly, subscribe to the show as we continue to be one of the fastest growing sports shows on the network. Tonight, our guest hails to us, as I say, from Northern California, Oaktown in the house. Yeah, Oaktown. You know, back in the day, Oaktown 357. You remember them? Yeah, they was a nice group. But this young lady has stepped over in a completely different fashion, a different area in sports. We always talk about, referees calling games. We always talk about how they made a bad call or they made a great call. But no one likes what the referee has got to say. But tonight, we're going to get from the inside source on exactly what the referees is thinking about. Not only does she come up from California, her love for loving basketball, kind of like the movie, is a little bit different. Because instead of going professional in that, she went on the other side and became a professional in the refereeing side of the house. So with no further ado, let's bring out my friend, a girl, the one and only, Shelley, Russi, to the show.
Thank
Shelley.
You hey, thank you, Tony, for having me. Thank you for the invitation. Love being here.
Wonderful.
We've had some good conversations over the last couple of days between your games and some of my games that
I know, covering. Right? It's been absolutely crazy. The one big crazy thing is that I got up and listened to the news this morning, and I know you're out in Alameda and all that, and just see the heart-wrenching things. I know we're across the country here in Nashville, Tennessee, and our crowd is from New York, Miami, Texas. We got a live crowd all over the country, and just sending blessings out there to everyone. So hopefully, your business, friend, family is not caught in this mischief at all. We just want to make sure everyone is doing well.
Well, look, I went to UCLA for my undergrad. I worked in the Wooden Center, and I've heard from so many of our friends and family that are down there. The devastation is real. And when these things take place, it brings you back to home and you realize what's important. And right now there's a need out there to serve the folks in Los Angeles and to make sure that we can get through this collectively. This impacts everyone. This isn't just a local region incident. It impacts everyone. And to see NBA families, other families, entertainment families, but then those that have always been underserved impacted.
Right.
It's devastating.
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to CBS News this morning, and the young lady had just met her family. I forgot who it was. I think Adriana Diaz, I think it was on CBS, just met her family for the very, very first time. And this is how she met them. in a situation that California is burning up, and she had to meet him. So that's devastating. It's already insane to meet a family member that you got to meet, but under these circumstances are phenomenal.
Look, you just want to pray for everyone, and hopefully something good comes out of this. But right now, you can't. I mean, for me personally, I have so many friends and family down there that it's important that we acknowledge the devastation that's taking place, and we outpour whatever we can to help those families.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And speaking of California, you are a California girl yourself, but you're the opposite direction up in the Bay Area, Oaktown. Tell us how it was growing up in because back in the day, of course, even though let me just clear my throat. You guys couldn't get over the phenomenal of MJ in Chicago. See, I got to rep for Chicago all the time. Couldn't get over
Love
MJ.
Love MJ.
There you go. But you guys have some nice guys in Gary Payton and Sean, Rain Man Kemp, and Detlef Schrempf, and Dale Davis, and all those boys. Tell us a little bit about growing up in the Bay Area at the time.
Hook Mitchell, you've got Jason Kidd, you've got Dame Lillard, you've got all kinds of stuff. A few of those are younger than me. So Brian Shaw, a handful of stuff. So I grew up in Alameda, California. I went to St. Joseph's Elementary School, which is where Jason Kidd went to high school. So big basketball organization. My parents volunteered, and their ministry was running CYO. They came from San Francisco. My dad was a basketball player.
That's CYO. That's California Youth Organization, right?
It's Catholic Youth Organization, but it was, and it's still very strong in the area. My dad started coaching young. All of us started early in officiating while we were playing, but we lived in Alameda, and St. Joseph's was the parish that we lived in. And so they ran the program and started the league. My mom even assigned literally for 40 years. She didn't, my parents did this for 40 years. And so at 14, all of us, right, all my siblings ref my games. So trust me, it was rough in the house. There was 6 of us in 9 years. And, as you're growing up in a basketball family, the earliest memories I have are in St. Joseph's Gym in Alameda. I would sit in the kitchen, we'd hide under the stands, we'd be under the bleachers, 2 years old, 3 years old, running around, causing havoc until it was our turn to start playing.
Right.
But parks in the city, we've got lots of parks redone by some NBA players. Steph Curry's redone some, Under Armour, all those things. So it's, basketball's really big up here. And for me, it started at St. Joe's. When I finished elementary school, went on to Schmoedown High School, another big basketball program. Brian Shaw's out of there. East Oakland, loved it. 4 years of amazing. We were one of the top programs, of course, very competitive. We didn't migrate. None of my grades got the state titles, but there's plenty of those in the girls' realm and a couple in the boys' realm as well. And very supportive. Was just up there the other day, reffing the
I got to shout out O'Day though. My cousin, my little nephew came out O'Day with right before Powell Banchera. Noah Williams, got to shout him out. He's playing ball right now down at James Madison. Came out of UW and transferred out. And of course, we already know about Powell. He's one of the biggest, kids to be in the NBA right now in Orlando. So, California, that Northern California, Grant High School, has done some phenomenal things up there. So you guys put it down up in that Northern California area.
Listen, it's been phenomenal. Northern California has always been just a real hotbed for community, right? A lot of community-based things across all walks of life, not just sports, but across all walks of life. Northern California has done some really powerful work. Of course, we've got Silicon Valley that came out in the 90s out of all of this. Yeah. But in the end of the day, there's just thought leadership here. There's motivation. There's inspiration. We don't have the serious warm weather in where I live, like Southern California, but we have very diverse communities situated around the Bay that creates a unique experience for people living here. So it's just been a phenomenal environment to grow up in. Obviously, lived in LA. After LA, I went to graduate school at St. Mary's College. I was director for intramurals and campus recreation there. And then I moved on to Chaminade University. I was in charge of the residence halls in Chaminade. And so it was very interesting. Chaminade hosts the Maui Invitational every year. So I I got all kinds of different experiences. I had the fortune of being the first female to ref a state high school championship game in the state of Hawaii. Never expected that. Just randomly going over there for that, and got hired into Division I before I left. But I actually turned down Division I because I wanted to have some life experience. I wanted to pursue this opportunity in Hawaii. And then after my first year there, I was picked up in Division I women's basketball.
Oh man, that's amazing. And speaking of that, coming back, talk to us a little bit, but you had a nice quote. You talked to us about the partnership with the Bay Area Basketball Association. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So a few years back during pandemic, I was asked, after I had stepped off the court, so I was asked to come out and referee some games. Shortage of referees. Not a lot of folks wanted to get out there if they weren't healthy or they had family members that maybe couldn't, be exposed to pandemic issues. And so for the first time in a handful of years, I got back out there and started reffing and just saw everybody that I knew. And it felt very right to be back in women's basketball doing that. In that capacity, asked to take over some of the women's league that was here and is still here, of course, and growing and expanding, and decided at that time that I would start the nonprofit to try to help fund some of the operations, bringing into it a referee focus. So I work, my actual job is I work with players and coaches and a variety of things in the NBA, WNBA, and other things. I have an integral life coaching and a master's in psychology. So I work with all different types of folks in a consulting fashion. But growing up on the hardwood, it was hard to leave it. And so it was very nice to come back and be able to get on the court. And then I also, when my brother and my sister-in-law, who ran the CYO out in their neck of the woods, were retiring from it, they asked if I would take over the officiating. So I did that 4 years ago too. And I have kind of youth to professional, and in between, I have just been certified to assign some high school games here in the state of California, just because I was asked to. Wasn't a goal, but hey, way it goes.
Hey,
just
when it's rolling, it's rolling. When it's rolling, it's rolling, it's rolling, and that's good. And so you just mentioned about your brother. So let's take it back. You come from a big basketball family, and you and I talked as well, which I really love it because you took the JUCO route. And I'm talking to these kids because I told you I'm a JUCO coach, and now back to high school. And with the portal and everything that's going on, stuff is driving me up the complete wall, Shelley. It's driving me nuts. But I believe, and I truly think, and I talked to some of my kids, the parents, that JUCO basketball is about to make one hell of a resurgence. Of course, we know when you and I came out in that late 80s, early 90s, St. Jacinto down in Texas, Rio Grande, Red River, California is a little unique because my guy, Coach Maloney, shout you out tonight, baby, in San Antonio, down in Laverne, California area. He's taking several of my kids, but California is almost like a Florida. And when I say that, a lot of people don't realize California does not have to come out the state of California to compete JUCO unless they just want to, because state's so big, and then from top to bottom, you got a northern JUCO, central JUCO, and a southern JUCO, and that's the same thing that's in Florida. Talk to us a little bit about, coming up and then falling in love with basketball. Obviously, you didn't have to get pushed into it because you were already there, but the basketball career that led into the refereeing side of the house. Because I'm sure your dinners were quite, interesting, because if I got a whistle in my mouth, hey, lay out the mac and cheese. That's mine.
Okay, so interestingly enough, was on the phone today with one of the presidents of one of the junior colleges and trying to work with a few of them as well. But yeah, look, I wanted to go to UC growing up, and my sister played at Cal. Four of us graduated from Cal, one graduated from UC Davis, and I graduated from UCLA. So for us in California, we're fortunate with good school systems. But when I graduated, my parents had 6 kids in 9 years. So if you wanted to move out of the house, then you had to find a way to pay for your living, right? And they gave us, we had lots of opportunities. I started reffing at 14. So it was about saving your money and get where you needed to go. And JC was the route for me because I thought I would transfer to Cal midway through my first spring break in college after I had been accepted to all of these places, but I couldn't move out because I couldn't afford to pay for myself. College and tuition was books and tuition, fine. So I stayed at home, went to JC, and went down to LA, loved it, and decided, okay, forget Cal. I'm going to LA. Just beach town. I gotta do it. That's the way we're going to do this. But regardless, I still have utmost respect for Cal. Worked it there after I graduated from UCLA. In the end of the day, my belief is junior colleges solve a lot of problems.
Yes.
Right? They allow for players and for human beings, not just basketball, not just sports, but folks to go and test out some things that they might think they want to do right now without the pressure of having to make a huge decision, get there, this momentous decision. Now that NIL is all the way down into everything and the transfer portal's there, it's causing so many, look, we all want choice. Everybody wants choice in life. But when you have too many choices, it creates a little bit of anxiety, right? And so junior colleges gives you that opportunity. Community college gives you the opportunity to test some waters in a way and then make some decisions as your life unfolds as an adult, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And now you can make some decisions for yourself. If it's the transfer portal, great. If you're transferring because you want to play, okay, no problem. If you're transferring just because you want to transfer or you don't like the coach, look, that's a tough situation. I mean, we've heard coaches speak on that. I've watched lots of podcasts from coaches that are far more educated than me in coaching kids in college. It's a tough situation because we know that persistence builds resilience.
Yeah, exactly. We all know that.
Yeah. And if we're not hitting that resilience gene, which I studied in graduate school, then we're facing further challenges. We're just facing that anything is fluid 100% of the time. So, having a little staying power to develop some skills for yourself for later in life is important. And I also get the fact you might want to make some money. And so if you can go somewhere else and have that opportunity, look, I mean, that's the name of the game in the United States right now. So.
Y'all kids better be listening while she's dropping those fire nuggets. And my main man, Mike Johnson, checking in, said, talking about the California JUCOs. He must know a little bit about that. And what's up, Mike? Appreciate you pulling up on us on the Pull Up Podcast show. As I got my guest, my girl in the house tonight, Shelley Russi, on talking about refology and everything around that. We're going to take our first quarter break as we talk quarter by quarter of sports. Val, pay a couple bills. We'll be right back on the Pull Up Podcast show.
Are you a small business owner looking to grow? Introducing the KeySpot mobile app. I'm Cynthia McAllister, owner of the IT company Quality SAP. Since 2016, we have been supporting small businesses and help them promote and share their businesses, services, and events across the country. KeySpot is more than just an app. We are a network providing community. KeySpot, connecting communities and supporting small businesses.
Hey, welcome back to the Pull Up Podcast show. Your main man right here, the one and only Coach Tony, with my guest in the house, Shelley Russi, talking about refology. Let's jump back to that side, So that's funny you say that, Shelley, because that's what I'm experiencing right now. I want some of these young people to really, really understand. I was actually in a heated discussion this past weekend with one of my colleagues I play golf with, just trying to make them understand. And these guys are throwing things around and what's happening and what's not happening. This NIL stuff is real. And not only that, for basketball, a little different than football, because of the NCAA made it so easy to transfer and play right away with no penalties being held. Only thing that makes me so upset is when it comes down to the academics. And Michael says, I agree about the JUCOs. He went to FJC out of high school, and later he went on to GWC OC. And he was a basketball hothead. It was a hotbed, rather. and at that time, he said, "Do you feel that the NIL negatively impacts high school basketball players in the landscape? As a referee, because you're out there, tell me what you think, because I know as a coach, Mike, I can give you my opinion real quick and I'll get Shelley's on that side of the house. As a coach, the NIL definitely impacts the landscape because, as I was saying, I've got kids right now who are high school seniors, and I'm literally reaching out to college coaches. One of my good buddies right now is up in your back door at San Jose State, San Bernardino, right now in UC Riverside. And I got some kids and coaches kind of get them. And right now they tell me, Coach, I would love to look at the high school kid, but my first look from my head coach is at the portal, because I may find a kid in a portal that, as Shelley just referenced, who don't want to be there, wants to transfer, maybe wants to play basketball and think this is for he or she, and they want to take the chance. So the coaches are not taking chances on the high school players because they don't know if they can take them yelling at them, screaming at them, being sitting on the bench, not getting the ball in their hands, and everything else. And then other side of it is people like Shelley who are blowing the whistle, referees. And you never know, a referee never give you a good call. But what are you saying on that, Shelley?
Look, every time you blow your whistle, you're wrong. And every time you don't blow your whistle, you're wrong. So like, to have the thick skin to enter this profession, for sure. But the stakes are up. And look, high school and youth levels all the way down to like second grade, people are losing their mind on these youth sports.
Why? I don't understand that. I had a question asked me earlier about why do parents act a fool in these youth sports, and there's sideline coaches and dads that want to, and they jump up and they got fight. That's no way to teach the kids.
Well, there's no room for failure, whether the referee's failing, the coach isn't playing their kid enough, the kid isn't doing what the parents think the kid should be doing at that stage of their life. We call it development for a reason, right?
Right.
Humans are in a developmental model all the way through. And now we've accelerated the monetization of development. So look, there's lots of thought leadership groups out there. There's lots of things going on. The National Federation of High School is addressing this. I just received an email from the state of California talking about the amount of issues that are going on in the sportsmanship space. And I'm seeing it at my ministry, the work I do at the youth level. From youth to adult, there's no believability. And in the end, I feel like we need to invite a developmental model into this, right? There's no way we can expect perfection. If you expect every time a referee blows their whistle that they're going to be perfect, the referees don't expect the kids to be perfect. I mean, there's a whole ecosystem out there. Coaches, the players, the coaches, subs aren't done right. Timeouts aren't called at the right time. Referees make mistakes. In the end of the day, I always rely on this statement. The game starts out 0-0, and in the end, somebody wins. And everything that happens in between is an experience. And what you want as a referee or a coach or a player is to walk out of the gym feeling that everyone knows what they need to go work on, and everyone knows that the game or feels the game was officiated fairly, that they had a fair chance to win. Mistakes.
I need you over here with me, because the other day I had two old guys and I had to run freaking on the court to half court, and I'm yelling timeout. And the dude turns around and has enough nerves to look at me, Shelley, and says, well, we're two old guys refereeing the game. We can't hear that great. I'm like, and you decided to be a referee and you decided to ref my game? Come on, man. I'm like, I don't get it. And then I said something else to him. He texted me up. So I'm just laughing. So the crazy part about what you were saying is, how did the opportunity of refology come by? Was it something that, like you said, you had saw the need for more refs, qualified refs, right? Because give a quick shout out to my kid, JP Prim, Nashville, Tennessee, played big time AAU ball, went on to UNC Asheville. He worked high school with his dad, me and his dad, Mike, good friend. And he jumped up, Shelley, you'd be proud of him. He worked the Las Vegas summer camp with the NBA, and now he's on that level, trying to get, making it. So he's doing his thing. So how did Refology come about, and what was the thought process behind it in terms of trying to get or teach good referees to help out in the game of basketball?
So when I was reffing Division I was hired young into Division I. And so I always had a career alongside my officiating career. And because my background, I worked at the Wooden Center. I started reffing at 14. I worked adult leagues at 16, 17, 18. So, here locally in the Bay Area, always part of the game in all aspects of it. Playing, reffing, coaching. I coached when I worked in high tech. I coached the men's program because the high tech guys, that was pretty much, there wasn't any women that were playing at that time, late 90s. So I coached the team. I believe that it takes all perspectives, no matter what you're doing. I don't have to be an excellent coach, but I should try coaching. I had opportunities for Division I scholarships, but at the time I grew up, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for women. So I pursued my education and pursued things that were going to produce some revenue for me later in life, right? And never actually wanted to be a referee. In fact, when I got to UCLA, I went and tried to walk on the team, and she gave me the very, very well-known coach now, who was an assistant scout at the time. She gave me the list of things I'd have to do for double days. And I simply said to her, this was day one. And I simply said, well, how am I supposed to work to make some money to pay to live here? And she goes, that's on you. And
wow.
I was like,
in other words, here's your list, figure it out.
Yes, day one. And so I got out somewhat deflated. And just like anything else, when you experience failure or disappointment in life, when one door closes, another door opens. Yes. Literally walked out of the James West Center and was unlocking my bike, and this guy I knew from the Bay Area goes, Shelley, is that you? What are you doing here at UCLA? I said, I just transferred. And he goes, hey, we need refs in the Wooden Center. And I was like, so I walked from one side of Bruin Walk trying to see if I could play, which I was a pretty good player. I mean, I was acknowledged and accomplished in my generation, and walked across Bruin Walk, never unlocked the bike, walked in, filled out the paperwork, and started working in intramurals. That was it. Wow. And at that point, my supervisor at the time was an NFL umpire, Chad Brown. He's since passed, so acknowledgement to him. He tricked us one day after all of us were pretty good at reffing. He said, hey, I'm taking you guys out to dinner. And the next thing you know, we're pulling into a high school parking lot. And I'm like, this doesn't look, are we going to a cafeteria for dinner?
We're going to a buffet at the school cafeteria or what?
Exactly. And he goes, no, you all are good enough. You need to ref high school basketball. And so we walked into a high school basketball association in the South Bay, Los Angeles. That was my first unit, was the South Bay, Los Angeles. So sometimes things happen for you and you don't expect them. And if you're able to ride the wave, as opposed to having this predetermined plan that you're going to do this, and if you don't make this, you fail. Well, I don't feel like a failure, even though I didn't play. In college, I had Division I scholarships. I didn't want to go to those universities, and I wanted to go to a UC. And so this was my path, kind of by default. Can't say I ever really wanted it, but it turned out, right? And so Refology came out of me being in Division I for so many years and teaching and training and doing the rules clinics over the years. And all of a sudden, I was like, there's so many people suffering at the lower levels. When I have all this information that I'm getting, it feeds from the top. It was coming to us, and it stops because we all make money, but these folks, they're out there in the avocation, the passion. But we make a good paycheck working Division I. Let me share this information with them and pass it on. So one day, great friend, also from O'Dowd, Eric Tomei, my husband, we sit in my kitchen. It's been remodeled. It was a little different and not so good looking. And we were throwing out names on what we could do. We threw out Ref-tastic, Ref Philosophy. We just kept throwing out names because I didn't want it to be Shelley Russi referee camp. And I don't believe that adults go to camps. I believe they go to workshops. So we created this brand, Refology. Shout out to Larry Baltudis, who worked at EA Sports at the time. And I said, there's only one person I can ask for a logo. Drove over, took the whistle I have, it's probably the same whistle on the keychain because nobody carries these things anymore. And I said,
Correct.
can you put this in, right? I got all the little, things you used to have your thing for. I said, can you put this whistle in the middle of ref enology? And he drew the logo. This was about 2009, 2010. And ever since then, it's always just been a passion project. It wasn't a
That's
business.
sweet.
It
That's
was
absolutely sweet.
a
And
way
it's
to
cool
pass on
because
info.
it's cool because I like it because you can get rid of the refology part of it. And as you push the brand, obviously, and all you got to put on the shirt is a whistle. I got my brand on the NIL side of the house right here with the Rise behind me. And the guy that gave me the concept of that with the Running Man, everybody's always like, what's the Running Man? Because that's the Rise itself. But he pointed this out with me through Amazon, Nike, Adidas. You don't see the logos anymore. You see the actual swoosh, you see the smile, and the three stacks. And so I like that with the whistle, man. We are getting tremendous knowledge from my girl, Shelley Russi here, talking about refology with your main man, the one and only Coach Tony. And this is the Pull Up Podcast Show. It is halftime. Shelley's done called too many fouls on my team. I got to go take my team in the locker room and talk to them real quick. Val, pay some bills. We'll be right back on the other side of the Pull Up Podcast Show.
Tony, what would you like to ask Terrence?
Listening to that trailer, man, it was so cool. When you got a chance to get involved, what were your past experiences?
I haven't necessarily done narration and voiceover, but I am a songwriter and performer. Of course, I've done that for a while. And with this project, one, I'm not seasoned enough to know what high 8 tapes are. So I'm just pulling off my experiences with elder people in my life and their stories and try to connect that bridge. So I just tried to do that the best that I could. And I'm happy with how it came about. I'm excited for people to start seeing it and seeing how over these many years it's come full circle, as John said.
Terrence hits on a great point. The spirit of the film is based on the spirit of the music and the times of the 90s. That was important that came across because that was a different frequency of music, back then.
Well,
it was an exciting, challenging time where you felt the birth of a new musical movement was happening.
Ultimately, we actually shot in 13 different locations and had a cast of over 60 people. And then we had this tape, this project that was still in search of an ending. And for 30 years, I've lied and carried this on my resume as a film that I completed. But nobody ever asked me for it. But I'm just grateful for the fact that, I'm grateful for the fact that Wendell found these and just wrote such a brilliant narration that really pulled everything together and brought it to some peace after all these years of this unfinished project.
Man, coming out of the locker room, this is the one and only Coach Tony. Shelley, the referee, done called too many fouls on my star player. I had to go sell them down to get started. This is funny because on that side of the house, everyone, you and I talked about this yesterday, right? And I told you I was going to think about it. No one thinks a referee either calls the right calls or gives them the right call, right? Though that's where we start in that lane. And it's hilarious because when you get the good referees, it's like amazing. What I don't understand, and which the question I got to ask you is in two parts. One part is I understand you have developing referees. I get it. What I don't get is when you put these developing referees with a veteran crew in a crucial game. I don't know the concept and thought process behind that. And the other part is when you was refereeing, what was one of the craziest games or craziest situations that you found yourself into?
Okay, so we'll start with how they put crews together, how we put crews together. When you're thinking about it, you always want to have a balance, right? Refology is the practice of refereeing present, physically, mentally, respectfully. I've branded some mindful tactics. And when we do a signing or when we put crews together, what you're trying to do is tap into a diverse way of satisfying the participants, right? Not satisfying, maybe not the best word, but making sure that there's enough ability to communicate, to be firm, to know the rules, right? Like there's different levels in officiating. In the NBA, everybody knows the rules. WNBA, they know the rules. They know where to put the ball in play. They know the rules. That is just fundamental. College, pretty much the same. They know all of the standard formats. But from everything below, there's such a shortage across the country, and there's not a whole lot of people influxing this unless they're going to have the opportunity to go up. So what you try to do is you try to meet personalities, right? You try to make sure that this crew is going to work together effectively. Okay. So in the end of the day, you got to have someone that knows the rules, because you can't make a rules mistake. That's just flat out not good for the game. Okay. Rules, we should all know. Like that's just your commandments, right? It's just the what we do.
Right.
The ability to communicate, everybody operates and has the ability to relate to people differently. I don't relate to everybody. I try my best to empathize and have compassion in the situation. I'm the compassionate ref. I was the one everybody came to because I would always listen, right? But others they were going to go down their path. And so when any kind of a supervisor, a signer, a system puts together people, they try to make sure that they're going to work effectively. Well, at the lower levels, sometimes you're just desperate to put people out there, right? So there's a lot of games being played with one referees over the last handful of years. And so that one person has to do everything. And when I tell you in my youth league, you gotta train the scorekeeper, the timer, because they're new every game because they're parent volunteers. You gotta, check everything. You gotta have the coaches. You're expected to hear timeouts in gyms with 10 whistles going off at the same time. So to your point about yelling for timeout, I would say to you, because we already talked about this, if I'm focusing on the 10 players and the action there, I'm not always going to hear everything over here, right? Like there's only so many things I can do when it's 10-2 or 3-2 or 3-10, right? 3 referees. So in the end of the day, there has to be a patience built in, a tolerance built in. And most folks are trying to balance the crews so that, and I call this is my youth league, right? I went to graduate school with a good friend that's in health and safety coaching, David Sarkis, and we teach zero incidents. He works across all kinds of hazardous places. And so every weekend, my message is about, can we have a 0 incident weekend? It doesn't mean we're not going to have technical fouls or we're not going to have issues in the game. It just means that there isn't something that I'm going to get a phone call about that I have to carry 3 and 4 days into the week. So when you put together crews, you're looking for, where can I find my 0 incident crew that's going to serve this game fairly, make sure the players leave, the coaches and all the game participants leave feeling the game was officiated fairly, but we had very minimal stuff I'm going to have to take care of afterwards. And so that's really, for the referees that might listen to this, that's what assigners are looking for. They want 0 incidents. They want people that know the rules that aren't going to make mistakes. They want people who can communicate, and they want people that can engage in collaborative teamwork. And those are the 3 things that referees do. So I told you I'd ask you, but I just gave them to you. So we can talk about that, but what else do referees do except that? Did I lose you, Tony? I'll answer it myself.
Looks
Val,
like
you answer it. Val, you lost it. Val, what do you think referees do? What is the role of a referee? Because my job in third side coaching and the work that I do as an integral coach is I work with players on mostly communication and rules education and leadership out there and how they can make the game better. And look, the players, the teams, they're always going to be ahead of the referees. They're always going to be ahead. This is their only thing that they do. This is what billions and billions of dollars are doing across the globe. Basketball is probably, and forgive me for all the soccer folks in the world and the other folks, it's probably the largest growing sport in many countries, including this one. It's growing. Lots of other sports are popping up and growing too, but in volume, basketball is huge. Why? It has personalities. It has people that you can see, you can identify with. There's the NBA has done a great job of marketing to the youth on up and to the different skills that are out there. And the WNBA now on the rise of women's sports. It's insane what's happening in women's sports. And they're one of the top leagues. And there's other women's pro sports popping up all over the place, basketball and beyond. And so you have, for the first time, visibility in media. And so what do we need to do in the officiating space? We have to recognize we're probably behind them. The refereeing is an afterthought. I always use the analogy, Val, that they think we just are like Superman. Like, I'll get a phone call almost every day that says, hey, can you come ref this thing? I'm like, do you not think I have a job? Or can you find somebody else to do this? I'm like, we're on a national shortage of referees. What is like, I can kind of do it because I work from home if it fits in the schedule. And I like the exercise, right? And it's my mindful practice to get back on the hardwood and do what I love to do. And what erases everything for me. Players will say the same thing. The only time they experience joy is when they're playing the game. For many referees, the time that you can tune everything out and be really mindful and try to be present and experience what's going on and have a really great experience trying to serve the game, because they're first is when you're reffing, if you're a referee, right? We spend hours and hours breaking down film and figuring out where the mistakes were and what we did. If you're at the highest of levels, right? At the lowest of levels, you don't necessarily get the film. So in the end of the day, the reality is that what it boils down to is referees are communicators. They have to engage in collaborative teamwork as team players. And what do you think the third thing? I say there's only three things. The what of referees, what referees do.
What referees do, and the calls that they make.
Okay, so that falls under making decisions. That is a formula for helping you in life. If you start reffing early in your life, not to become a referee, maybe you want to become a professional referee, but early in life, as you're playing and as you're learning this game and you're playing the game, what better way to be learning all the different perspectives by seeing how referees make decisions and learning the rules. Oftentimes, even in the lower levels, they think the game is just like the NBA. Well, the rules are different at the NBA, the WNBA. They have some differences. The G League has differences. The men's and women's basketball has differences. High school has differences. And youth level, you get yelled at for things and you're like, well, God, is that the rule today? It's like, I don't think that's the rule today, right? And so like you have to go try to explain it to them, and they think you're lying to them or manipulating. And so in the end of the day, when you're teaching these young folks, you're able to teach them perspectival sharing, right? And like being curious about, what do you think the rule is, coach? Because right here's the set of implementations that we have. And then maybe you could explain it to your kids because they're having meltdowns on us. And actually, this is the rule. And so we're causing all of this chaos without leadership saying, look, this is developmental until we get to a higher level. Unfortunately, the higher level is now when you're exiting middle school, because that's where the money comes into play. So the three things, I'm going to hit this home. Referees communicate. This is the what of what we do. We can all talk about why we do it. There's avocation. There's all kinds of podcasts out there about a referee's why. Why would anybody want to sit in this? Why would anybody want to go into public service in this capacity, when really only a couple hundred people in the country at the Division I level make enough money to do this as a living, and 70 referees in the NBA and WNBA make enough money to do this as a living. You can be a surgeon before you have a path to making any money in this. You're doing it out of love at the lower levels. And once you get a feel for it, you want to jump up. You immediately, you work your first playoff game, you think you should be in the Final Four because you see them on TV making mistakes. So in the end of the day, referees communicate with everyone. They communicate with the coaches, with the players, with the scorers table, with the administration when they walk in, with how things are being administered, with the clocks, the timing, and all those devices. We also, as you know, because I still consider myself a referee in a portion of my identity, we engage in collaborative teamwork, and it's the same thing. We have to communicate with all those people, and then we have to find a way to embody viewing the entire arena, whether it's a little kids game or an NBA game or a WNBA game or whatever level you're at. We have to view them as they're our team right now. So how do we effectively manage, run, and create an environment where we're facilitating fairness, period. And then the third thing we do is, you said it, we make calls. We call that decision making. We make decisions. So Tony, what type of decisions do referees make in a game?
Well, they make the decision of a foul situation. For example, they determine whether or not the individual made a foul or not made a foul, whether it be a blocking foul, a charging foul, whatever it may be. I also think that a referee, depending on the call that he or she makes in a game, could be a game-changing call because it could be a momentum call. It could be a deflating momentum or upflating momentum call based on the team and where you see the runs are going at that time too. And then I would say the last one would be a helpful. I think referees on the floor can be very helpful because I love the referees that make a call, but able to explain the call to the athletes and all that, which is good. I'm going to let you talk about that. And we got a question from someone. We're going to take our last break of the day. And then in the third quarter, we're going to come back with my girl on refology, Miss Shelley Russi. Val, pay our last bill of the day. We'll be right back on the Pull Up Podcast Show.
We're kicking off a whole brand new season. I know you guys have missed us, but we are back. And of course, it's always exciting and wonderful to have a very talented individual who has started a wonderful tech company. And then, of course, he is the host of Tech Thursdays on a platform called the House of Creativity. And he has just finished his book, Where? Jay Mullane Wise. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Val the Voice Johnson. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
One thing I forgot to mention is that also about, I want to say October, November of last year, Wise stepped into the podcasting game, initially starting on Instagram and then started his platform, Wise Going Live. I was recently on the platform, but I think I've been there 4 times. It has been extremely gratifying to see how far you've come as a host, a podcaster, and also a moderator, sir. So I just wanted to say kudos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. When you're around great talent like yourself, Val the Voice, it only does it inspires you to go forth. And we have amazing community of people that inspire us to actually, keep accountable. You keep me accountable. I keep you accountable. We all keep each other accountable, and we try to do the great thing to move forward.
What is going on? I got to do the opening. I didn't do that. Just like from that movie, I'm going to Get You, Sucker. Everybody needs a theme song.
And you got that right.
Everybody needs a theme song. Let's not get it twisted.
Man, welcome back to the Pull Up Podcast Show. Your main man here, the one and only Coach Tony, and my guest, Miss Shelley Russi. we talked about those three things the ref do, and Michael had a good question. Because you've been on both sides of the ball, both sides of the pond, WNBA, NBA, international, and all that. He asked, "What's the similarities, and what are the differences that you have noticed or observed in how you or how women who are refereeing have been treated either here domestically or internationally in the States, as opposed to receiving how you are being treated overall?" Do you find that in FIBA basketball, the women are being treated a little differently and a little nicer, or do you see that women are being treated more better or here in the States? And I love the comment you told Val earlier, and I just told someone this frequently. Basketball is the number one growing sports worldwide. I know soccer's there, but soccer's already the existing sport that's been there and it's trying to grow the numbers because of what Dennis Rodman's daughter is doing in the Team USA, and women's basketball is winning the money. Soccer's won the money from the legal fight, but basketball, because of concussions and everything else going on in soccer and knees and all that from volleyball, basketball is growing by leaps and bounds.
It's a great question, and thanks for asking. International. I had the fortune a couple of times doing some international engagements and also teaching in, look, FIBA also has a different rule set. I went down the NBA, WNBA, G League, FIBA. There's so many different rule sets out there that when you get the opportunity to be present, it's great. One thing I would say is, as a woman, I started young. I worked 20 straight years in Division I women's college basketball on the West Coast. I worked the conferences all on the West Coast. I never missed a season. I had 2 kids. I ref till I was 6 months pregnant, because basketball at the time, even the money that we were making then, it couldn't be a full-time job, not living in California, right?
Right.
So you were always fearful if you gave up your spot, then somebody else would get it, and would they bring you back? So literally, I have pictures rolling my stroller in with my husband to Cal 2 weeks after my first was born, and Stanford 3 weeks after my second. And the coaches couldn't have been. Karen was pregnant. Both her pregnancies were at the same time as mine. Hers were delivered a little bit later, so very empathetic. And Tara at Stanford, always very empathetic.
Love Coach Vanderveer. Love Coach Vanderveer.
Always very empathetic, very family oriented, made you feel welcome. But there wasn't the opportunities to fail necessarily, right? Or to have your full life. So, I'm a product of the time where we tried to do it all, had to have a full-time job, do all of this. Going internationally a handful of years ago, 6-7 years ago, plus some of the USA basketball stuff I did, realized that, look, women culturally, we can say what we want about America, but culturally, there's some privileges that exist. And when you go overseas, a strong female, even when you're brought necessarily to teach, and even here locally, I've worked in plenty of jobs where they hired me because of whatever my demographic was, and they didn't want to hear what I had to say. They didn't care where it came from, how good it was. So being received as a basketball official, I will tell and invite anyone to realize, when you're good, you'll be received. So you need to figure out how to communicate across all kinds of cultures, because basketball is multicultural. Okay. Referees now are multicultural. Everybody, look at who's coming into our professional system. Learn how to communicate, learn how to understand other people's perspectives, learn how to be curious about their perspective. When someone screams and yells at me about a call I missed, I'm going to say, well, what did I miss? Because clearly you're going off on me for some reason. I must have missed something. And sometimes you get a response back that's funny. They say, oh, no, you didn't actually miss anything. I'm just really pissed at my kids, but the only one I can yell at is you, right? Like there's all kinds of reasons why you're getting yelled at. There's all kinds of reasons why conflict exists that may not be so personal. So internationally, yes, there is different culture codes, and no matter where you go, you certainly should do your homework before you arrive, because you want to make sure that you're not coming in making assumptions that everybody does things the way we do them. They don't, right? And that's the same thing as me working with NBA players or WNBA or professional players. The training that these players are doing now and what the coaches are going through, it's phenomenal. It's 24/7. There's routines, there's systems, there's habits. They have the best self-discipline really that you can find across a lot of different entities right now. Referees, my invitation is for you to exercise that same discipline and then also keep the humility that's there, because I work on the other side. I work with players now to try to help them communicate with you, to bring the best out of you. How can they ask questions of a referee that's going to produce a response that's productive? And that's it. Like, so whether it's internationally, how can you be curious about what it is that our role is in the game? It's never to be right. You should be a good decision maker. You should be able to communicate, and you really should be able to be a team player.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And my guy, D. Reed, what's up, baby? Thanks for checking in. It's my homeboy from Kappa Alpha Psi. My frat brother down in Dallas says, thank you so much, Shelley, for your commitment and support to greatness and being able to play and referee the game. And as we come down to a close here, we got a two-part question for you, Shelley, as you answer, as we get ready to close out here. The one question is coming from Scott Calvin, says, Shelley, can you please give us 3 tips for communicating between coaches and players? And I think that's a hell of a question, because what I see as a coach is that the players are already frustrated and there's everything going on. Then a referee doesn't make the players live, and then the coach is screaming at them. So please answer that. And then the last question I want you to answer before we get out of here tonight is, what's the future of refology? Where do you plan to take it? Where do you want to go? And how can people reach out to you and get involved so they can come to some camps and clinics?
Excellent. Okay, so tips for communicating with coaches and players. Obviously, you have to know your situation, situational awareness, where you fit in the realm, right? Having the ability to notice, and I 2 things. Referees are supposed to know the now. That's a branded thing I teach when I'm doing film breakdowns. Note, position adjust to know the now. Okay, so if you're getting screamed at or you have to communicate, sorry, the dog's trying to communicate with me too. If you have to communicate,
that was a foul.
That was foul. She's totally pissed at me right now. She wants out, but in the end, she knows how to open the door, so she got herself out. So in the end of the day, if you can start to sense into having a felt sense of the game and recognizing, knowing the game started and you've had a series of calls all throughout, are we present to know the consistency that we're creating or lack thereof? And when subs come in, what are they doing? And so recognizing and being able to see others. As a referee, if I can see the coaches and the players, even if I'm right, if I can listen to their perspective, listen to what they are noticing, and then come up with a thoughtful response. Times to be firm, right? We can't talk to a coach every time. There is a time. So for every coach that might listen to this, when I call my foul, you may as well talk to the other person. Do not come to me, because I've made my decision. You think I'm going to change my decision because you're talking to me? I can't. There are some calls that can be changed. See if the 1 or 2 other referees might be able to, whether it's continuation, whether we're awarding shots, whether it was an out of bounds call. I made my decision. If I didn't, I wouldn't have blown my whistle. Right. And somebody else would have made a decision, right? I'm supposed to reserve I'm not going to guess unless the game's going to go to hell, right? So like if I have to make a, cluster call, then that's one of those things. We call those whistle plays. I coined that in one of my blogs years ago. That's a whistle play. The whole game goes to heck if we don't blow our whistle. But in the end of the day, don't come to me. Let me finish my report because I've communicated, unless it's something I can change. So
Mhm.
coaches and referees have to also recognize that there are those situations where if it's something that I can change, get to me or one of my partners. If it's not something I can change, wait till I'm finished reporting and then we can have a conversation about it. And referees, it's okay for you to say, Coach, give me a second. Let me finish my report, or just to continue. We're not ignoring you, but we have a job to do that we're
Right.
not going to vary on. That's my job. I blew my whistle. I'm going to tell my partners what they need to do. I'm going to report it to the table. I'm going to turn around. We're going to confirm, and now we can chat. Okay,
Right.
you got a problem
Well,
with
that's
it?
awesome.
I may say to you, players, just recognize the same thing. The emotional break, we have a lot of emotion in our culture right now, and some of it's contained. We're doing better with emotional intelligence, but referees have to recognize when you see a player's emotions escalating, what can you do to de-escalate? Why would you want to incite a riot, right? Like see it coming and try to mitigate it. That's who I was. I won't use any players' names, but when I was reffing, I'd be like, okay, I see you. Tell me what's wrong. All you have to do is ask them, tell me what's wrong, and let the energy sink down into their feet and let them tell you, because you, Tony, might have been yelling at them. They might have their parents shaking their heads no in the stands that they're screwing up.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I call a foul that may or may not be right. I mean, hopefully it's right, but they need
And
to.
they're in the trenches. And they're in I tell the kids all the time, you are in the trenches. You're the one that's getting beat up on. So you got to be, I always tell the kids how to go talk and approach to a referee. It's so funny. So I know it's insane. But when you're looking at refology, where's it going in the future? What do you want to do with it in terms of the
So
camps and clinics? I got people that said, hey, I may want to start refereeing or checking this out.
So we have an embodied referee coaching program that's going to be launching here in the next couple of weeks. We've done it the last 3 or 4 years as kind of a beta test to see. We don't have anything to assign you where you're going to make a bunch of money. Like I got some youth leagues. I do test things. I take things that are going to be models, right? So I can put into practice things that I know are going to be effective. But we're launching a group for people who want to get better for their own self-development. They want to participate in this. We'll have some events and things that we'll attend. I also host a embodied summit, which is a leadership summit, leadership at the intersection of basketball plus officiating. That's very exciting. That'll hopefully be live. It's been on Zoom. Hopefully we'll take that live in 2025, not to make the rhyme, but live in 2025, because now we're out of our circumstances. We've had people, I have an embodied referee jersey that I make every year to try to teach leadership skills through officiating and also keep our referees present and engaged. And I'm creative and I like to make them look pretty and cool and different. And we've had people on. Dusty Baker was our keynote speaker a couple years ago. We've had Dan Hughes. We have folks that want to share. Analytics folks, Tom Haber. I mean, I could go down the list of everybody. Women, we had Misty Bass. We had Robin Bostic. We had folks sharing with referees because they want to engage in dialogue to help that perspectival sharing, right? We need to move the game forward, right? To be a collective, to take this to the #1 sport in the world. We have to start to listen to each other. We have to start to understand each other, and we have to start to figure out, I don't call it conflict resolution, but we have to have conflict awareness. And so teaching the conflict awareness so that, like I say, the game starts out 0-0 and in the end, somebody wins. And that's how we're going to roll through this as long as they play the game. Tony's frozen. So anyways, Val, I see Tony frozen. This has been privileged to be part of. Okay. This is what happens in a game. You got to adjust. And so Val, thank you. Thank you. And for what you guys do, I love it. I love listening to your advertisements and your interludes and just the intersection of music. My jersey last year, I'm going to leave you guys with this. My jersey last year was beautiful compilation designed from a few of us. And I came up with the concept on talking about consistency. Pink
Right.
sound is added to music. I did a whole research on this. Pink sound is added to music to create consistency. And I was like, perfect, right? Because it's the color pink, which I love, right? So pink sound added, we added the color purple, which brings in all kinds of things, the depth of self-awareness, using it for situational awareness. And I'm not a fan of stripes. So, for a variety of reasons, just, culturally and just in general, not a fan, but I wanted to keep a composure of the stripes. So we created what looked like kind of a sound cloud. Larry helped on some of the design. Valerie at Smitty helped on some of the design, and we created this together. And in the end, I give a name to the jersey, and this one was the waveform. And it had a tagline, "What's your sound?" And so I invite everybody out there, whether you're a coach, a player, a referee, what's your sound? Figure out what your sound is, and it can adjust. It changes. If you pull from jazz music, it's very much spontaneous, right? And so you have to be present, refereeing present, to understand the impact you're having in the moment. And you can't fix everything. You're going to miss calls, but hey, that's life. Nothing's
Exactly.
perfect.
Exactly. And I see a lot of folks were given wonderful questions to you, Shelley. And like I said, this has been a real education for me. I don't know of many women referees in the game. And like I said, when doing the research on refology, it was extraordinary to see how many folks you are reaching and helping. And so it's been fun learning a little bit more about reflexology and how people can be referees and actually do their thing. So I want to thank you, Shelley, again for just being here. And of course, we're so excited that you came and you joined us here with the Pull Up Podcast show. Oh my goodness. But I definitely, and Third Side Coaching is a part of refology. Is that correct?
Third Side Coaching and Refology are two co-brands under my company. And Third Side Coaching is where I work with the players. It's kind of hard to teach the same things and have one community because there's still a separation. At some point, I'll bridge the gap. We're already doing that. But right now, Third Side Coaching is where we serve the players, the teams, the coaches, and we educate them. Really, it's just education in what are referees looking for? What are the rules? How do we interpret this rule? Right? Where do we need to move to see this? I teach position adjust to know the now. And we teach them, how things come up and the questions when mistakes happen or perceived mistakes, because the referee isn't always wrong. When perceived mistakes happen, who do you go to? How do you talk to them? How do you engage them to get the response that's going to be productive so you can get on to the next play? Period.
Right.
So,
and so
all right, Tony's back with us.
Exactly. And we want to bring him back just in time for him to break down.
Let me close out. First of all,
there you go.
First of all, thank you. Hey, welcome to technology and Android world, right? And what's going on? Maybe Mark Zuckerberg did something, didn't want me on the show tonight or something. I don't know. But Coach, I appreciate you tonight, Shelley. And this is, speaking of sports, my brand here in the sports marketing side of the house is the Rise NIL. For those that are looking at opportunities of branding themselves between the brand and playing sports at the next level, doesn't matter if it's basketball, football, baseball, tennis, golf, whatever, reach out to me to learn a little bit more about the Rise at www.risenil.com. And tomorrow night, we'll be back in the house tomorrow, Val and myself, on Interludes Talk on Tuesday. And we're going to be talking about, of course, Val's book, because she's already released it and done some things. And Shelley, if you want a good book to read, this is awesome, because she wrote a book called A DJ Saved My Life. How she goes through the whole interludes of how being a DJ actually saved her life and whatnot. And so it's been absolutely phenomenal. It's got a QR code, and you can download the book. And Val, talk to us a little bit about tomorrow night, what we're going to do.
Well, we are fans of Kim Fields, Mike Epps, and Wanda Sykes. They are the producers and writers of the show on Netflix called The Upshaws. We'll give you some updates that's been happening out in California regarding and how the Hollywood community is coming together to help folks that have been displaced due to the wildfires. But we'll be talking The Upshaws. It's their sixth part or their sixth season. And of course, they're coming up on their last season, Coach. And so we're going to talk Mike Epps, Kim Fields, and Wanda Sykes and how this show has been hilarious since 2021. So we'll be talking about that on tomorrow. And then, of course, next week for you, Coach, what's happening?
Man, just a follow-up. I mean, to have Russia, then to come back and have Shelley, and then to get my girl next week, Melissa Anthony's coming on. And Melissa's got a unique situation. Shelley, make sure you tune in next week. She got a show out of Atlanta, Georgia called What Happens Now Sports, where she teaches basically women who don't know a lot about sports, but they're single moms with, yeah, they're single moms with kids playing. And I'm telling you, Shelley, when I got Val and me and Val collaborated, Val was about, I would say, between 8 to 10% on sports. And now to get her saying sometime, hey, Coach, I watch the games. Excuse me, what you do? What? Because she goes on. She watches the game.
Call, ref.
Yeah, and I love it. Right, it's a bad. And I always tell her, watch the referee, because the ref never gonna make a good call. No, I'm just joking, Shelley. But to get her to watch it is great. And Melissa put together a podcast to deal with this, and she's working with the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Hawks, and Trae Young and the guys and other people. And she educates women on what's a first down, what's a 15-yard penalty, what's a whatever it may be, teaching that so that as they're sitting in the stands watching their child play, they're not getting the sideline coach, right? They're saying the referee is bad. They can actually understand the game. So I'm looking forward to talking to her. And she and I have been connected at the hip for about 30 years right now. So it's been great.
Love that. That's amazing. And I just want to say how grateful I am for you reaching out and asking for me to join, because, you know, seeing what you're doing, it's amazing. And thank you so much. And Val, look, my mom was that. She wasn't a sports person either. And she just happened to marry a guy that was, you know, a kind of Hall of Fame basketball guy, right? And everywhere he played. And she did the best she could too. And in the end of the day, what you guys are doing for the community and just hosting and bringing in these voices is important. So thank you. Appreciate you guys, and prayers up for you guys and for all of Los Angeles. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We're going to bring you back because I got a lot of people to ask questions. And I love Val putting the tagline. For those that didn't see earlier, Val said, hey, get out to IG, get out to our LinkedIn. If you got additional questions to ask Shelley, she's available. Again, get out to refology.com. Take a look at her website and look at some other things. Shelley, we appreciate you very much. Thank you. We'll be on the other side in the back room in a second, catch back up with you. But I want to let you guys know I appreciate you tuning in tonight. But as Val and me always say, you know my words. Peace.
It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Show. I said bounce the